Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, colleagues. Should I assume that the lunch is so good? Why people decide not to return? All right, thank you. So, as the chair recommended, we should go ahead and start. And as we start, we are sure that individual will hear us laughing and clapping and have a good time, and then they would come to join in. So thank you for staying with us. The course, I must commend the organizers and also add my my gratitude to the presenters who have presented and has shared a lot of information with us. I would say we are pretty close to the end of our second day of good presentation, good information sharing by everyone. I hope you're having a good time. I'm having a good time. So the session that we have today, I think it has been whittled down somewhat. It should have been education and training, and then, two subsection, education and training and technology and modernization. We're going to focus this afternoon on the technology and modernization. In that section, we're going to have two presentation, and as said earlier, but we will have three presenters. So the first presenter is Mr. Peter Mccarthy, and he'll be looking at exploring the opportunities that exist for synergies between engineering technologies and techniques used to design, implement, and manage supply chains. So let me read a little about Mr. McCarthy. So Peter McCarthy has been involved in the tertiary education for over 15 years. He holds a BSc with major in electronics and mathematics and an MSc in digital technology. An engineer by training, he currently holds the position of Dean of the Faculty of Engineering and Applied Technology at the Caribbean Maritime University. Prior to joining the Caribbean Maritime University, Mr. McCarthy worked as an engineer at the Mavis Bank Coffee Factory, where he had responsibility for the overall maintenance of the factory. So with that being said, you could please help me to welcome Mr. McCarthy to the podium. So, Peter.
Yeah. Good afternoon, ladies, gentlemen. All protocols observed, as they have already been established. Today, we had a number of presentations early on, mainly focusing on the purely logistics side. So I'm going to more skew my presentation along the lines of engineering and look at the applications of engineering to supply chain management. The theme for this conference is very fitting. We're looking at end-to-end logistics in an era of uncertainty, and as we know, we will always be living in an era of uncertainty because it is not possible to predict with 100% accuracy what will happen from day to day. All right, so we'll move on to, first of all, looking at commerce and the business of supply chain, as it refers to network of organizations, people, activities, information, and resources involved in delivering a product or service to a consumer. And the components of supply chain include producers, vendors, warehouses, transportation companies, distribution centers, and retailers. The function of a supply chain include product development, marketing, operations, distribution, finance, and customer service. So in looking at the management of all of these different parts of the supply chain, we're going to look at some of the core engineering technologies that are important in achieving these goals. And so we start with the Internet of Things, which is very important. We have these digital and in some cases analog components. But today we are mainly focusing on the digital era. And this would include sensors. These are smart probes, devices that are able to capture information from a system and then transmit these information using things like SCADA systems to a remote location, or from a remote location to another central location where processing can take place and decisions are made. We have cloud computing, and it's very important that we employ this technology in how we manage especially our e-commerce. We have been improving significantly on our computer technology over the years, especially as it relates to processor design. So we have been able to design and build some very powerful supercomputers. And by using parallel processing, we are able to process a lot of data in a very short period of time. Today, we are even moving into another era where we are moving away in the next few years from the silicon-based processors that we now use in our devices to use carbon nanotube processors, which we are able to pack a lot more of those small components we call transistors into a chip. And because carbon is a much more efficient transmitter of heat than silicon, some of the heating issues that we have with our computers presently, we'll be able to solve some of those issues. And therefore, we'll be able to process information faster and be able to make decisions in the future that we are not able to make now. Digital twins, this is a case where we produce more like an avatar of, let's say, a human being or a replica of an object, a piece of technology, in a virtual space. And then we will use that particular avatar that is produced to study the behavior of the real-life individual. And eventually, we can actually use that avatar to even conduct business in somewhere called currently a metaverse on behalf of the individual. In the future, what we are looking at is the possibility of actually having that avatar being able to complete multiple tasks in different locations at the same time. It is a very tricky business because it would mean replacement of some of our human capital in the workplace. But one of the things that we know about machines is that, especially when you need repetitive work to be done, they're far more efficient than humans can. AI systems, and in brief, pretty much what we are trying to do is to replicate human intelligence in machine. It's an extremely wide and deep area, and so time won't allow me to really go very far into this. But pretty much to say that we are trying to approximate human behavior in machines. Neural nets and deep learning, these are really parts of artificial intelligence and machine learning tools. Neural networks, actually, what we're trying to do is to mimic how the human brain works and apply that to machines in order to build these smart systems that are supposed to work autonomous. And you would have heard about the field of mechatronics and industrial automation. These are some of the technologies that we employ in those areas. And the Caribbean Maritime University has a laboratory, or a set of laboratories at the Festofax Center where some of this technology is on display. And we try to train our engineers as well in these kinds of technology. And then 5G technology, which really is mobile technology at the cutting edge. And currently, there is research going on to develop 6G technology, which will allow us to transmit a lot more information because it will increase the bandwidth available to us. And when we combine all of these technology, what we end up getting is a very smart system, or systems that can work independently of our human inputs, or with very little human inputs. All right, how does this apply? The cyber physical space, pretty much forward, is pretty much a case where we have put all of these technologies together now, and we are able to have these human-like entities, which will include robotic technology now. This is where we physically build replicas of, let's say, a human arm, and we program these replicas to work with precision and to do repetitive work at the moment. Eventually, though, what we really want is to get these machines to pretty much be able to do all of the activities that a human being can possibly do. And that will allow us to be able to produce goods faster and be able to satisfy our customers better. I break down the different steps in supply chains into about 10 main areas. One of them has to do with, we're starting with the demand and we're ending with the supply or delivering the product. So we start with a demand, and what we do, we develop these smart systems that are able to, once a demand comes in from a customer, that AI system should be able to map the demand to a supplier, be able to decide the nearest or the most efficient way of getting the good or services to the customer. In the future, what we're looking at is that this same AI system will be able to dialogue with the customer, advise the customer as to the different stages of that order, what's the best payment methods, the different legal laws and so on that actually govern the movements of goods and services from the supplier onto the customer, determine the best way to transport the good to the customer. And I remember early on, one of our presenter, Mr. Telemack, mentioned the fact that we shouldn't be having these large warehouses on our ports. I'm of that opinion as well too, that in the future what we really need to do, instead of having persons even coming to the port to process goods and services, we could have everything done online, and even the transportation, that same AI system could advise the customer as to the available transportation systems that are there, have the person select their mode of transport, have the person pay for the whatever custom fees, and have the goods delivered to the physical address. That would cut down the need for warehouse spaces, cut down congestion on the ports, and also make it give the ports more space to construct, for argument's sake, more berths if it needs, or even to expand their capacity. Skip again. So we're going to skip in the interest of time. Those are pretty much just those 10 steps that I spoke about. The geography of the demand source right up onto the quality of service. So we can skip along. Now, bulk cargo will still be transmitted by megaships. And that is something that will continue with us for the foreseeable future, unless we develop some technology in the future that is able to supersede it. But from what I'm seeing, this will remain with us. The train ships, I mentioned this because this is a new technology that is being talked about a lot. The possibility of having trains that transport goods be able to take their cargo onto the ship at the source point, and when they get to the destination point, these trains just drive off the ship back onto a line and to their other destination. So in other words, there will be no need to remove these containers from these ships, from these trains at all. It can also be done using for lorries that transport containers. If it's more efficient to transport it over, let's say, waterways rather than overland, you could have the same kind of situation, either a barge system or a physical ship, where these lorries could drive onto these vessels and be transported to the destination where they would just come off and continue on their journeys. Where we are with AI at this point, we can make those trucks driverless, as well as the trains as well driverless. So we wouldn't need to have humans in them any at all. In order for this to work, though, there's something that we would have to be looking at, and is the legal agreements between different trading blocks or different areas, where, let's say, we develop a system where once the good is checked at the source, it does not need to be checked at the destination. That can be tricky because somebody may ask, what if somebody, for argument's sake, open a container and put something in it on its way from the source to the destination? There's an area of research that we are looking at the Caribbean Maritime University, myself and some of my colleagues, to see if we can develop more like an X-ray system that will be able to develop a spectral ID for a container. And how this would work is you pass a beam of X-ray through the container. There will be scattering at the other side of the container. So using a detector there, you could create a spectra that is unique for that container. So once you do that at the source, at the destination, what you're doing, you're matching that spectra with the spectra that was obtained at the source. And if there's any discrepancies, then you check the container. If not, the container continues without having to be stripped down and checked. It's, it's in the research stage. We're looking at it. Based on the physics involved, it seems pretty possible. And that would cut down significant amount of time on the wharf in terms of checking these containers. And the thing is that, get it right, it can be far more effective than even humans checking the container. Drones are very important tools to us today, and there is a lot of discussion about using them to transport goods, especially goods that are small packages. There are, however, a number of issues that we'll have to take into consideration, mainly as it relates to security. Because the fact that drones can be used for a whole lot of things beside dropping off legitimate goods, we would have to look carefully at legislation as well as the security implications of using these. But it has been done in a few places where some of our courier service has actually used it to deliver packages. And I strongly believe that in the future, it is going to be a main part of our supply chains. So I would encourage those persons who are here in the legal profession and the law enforcement that this is an area that seriously needs some looking into as to how we'll be able to manage this without creating a security risk for ourselves. The last thing I want to look at is the concept of mobile berth. What we find is that in order to build logistics hubs or large ports, it is good if you have a lot of deep water close to shore. Outside of that, you would have to look at dredging, which is expensive. Plus, it disrupts the marine environment and creates some problems in the ecosystem. This is something, again, that we are looking at in terms of research at the Caribbean Maritime University, is to build the mobile berths. More platforms that you can roll out to a ship on the sea. And these platforms would have legs that can anchor to the seafloor, and they would be equipped with cranes and the conveyor systems that when it moves out, it would dock onto the ship, remove the containers, put them on conveyor systems, which will bring them back to land, and so you wouldn't need the ship to be docking so close to shore. So if you have an issue with berth space, that is one way that you could create a number of berths without having to do any form of dredging at all. The research is to look at how easily something like this could be implemented, and the plan is to build a model, see how it works, work out the costing of doing this, as opposed to doing dredging, and possibly present this at another conference that may come up. And also, but I think it's something, based on what we have seen so far, that is very possible. The other thing I want to speak about very quickly is the use of the same technology that is using high rigs, where we could have these floating platforms out from shore, where large ships can dock, again without having to do any form of dredging. And then we use conveyor systems from there to bring the containers on land. The final point, and then I close, has to do with central and regional storage. there are certain goods that are specific to certain regions. And probably what we need to also look at is, let's say the Caribbean use a particular product. We could decide that among ourselves of Caribbean nations that we are going to use, let's say, the port in Kingston to store certain goods that will then be transshipped using smaller ships to other parts of the Caribbean. And then another type of goods we could store in, say, Antigua port, and we do that around the Caribbean. And that way, we could have ports that specialize in dealing with certain kinds of goods and become far more efficient than what we are doing right now. So, Mr. Telemac, those are some of the things I think we can use to help solve the berth issue, as well as the fact that when ships come to our ports, and our ports are full, and they have to be waiting in the harbor for a space, if we can have these mobile berths that we can just roll out to them, would cut down the wait time that they will have to do in ports and make ourselves more competitive. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And I'm going to use your correct title. Thank you for that, Engineer Mccarthy. It has been refreshing for me. I was there enjoying it and everything. But I know that most of us here are teachers, and I've done it for a couple of years, over 23 years. I've been in the classroom. And one of the skills that you develop is reading people's faces, right? And that was kind of the challenge with the online education. And while the presenter was presenting, I was reading to my two students in the front here. I was reading Mr. Telemac and Dr. Deans, and they were saying, boy, them thing here sound like sci-fi. That's what their faces were saying to me, right? The thing about it is that that's where we're going. That's where we're going, Another thing that I noticed from the presenters, what you spoke about is that you spoke about AI, and you spoke about AI replacing some human jobs. I remember back in the day, it's not too long ago, about 2017, I was making a presentation at the Pegasus, and I think it was a manufacturing presentation or something like that. And we started talking about AI and the use of AI to replace some human beings, and people were up in arms. And trade union were saying to me, so what you're saying is that you're going to replace people's job and people are going to be out of job. But when you were making your presentation, you talk about not replacing some, but replacing all of the jobs. So basically, that's where we're going. The narrative is changing, and we have to get with it. And if you don't want to use AI, that's up to you. You are going to be left in a time warp. Right? We have to move with the time. This is where the world is going. We have to, small Jamaica, small Caribbean region, we have to go also. We have to be a part of it. And supercomputing, it's normal right now, and it has been around for the longest while, really, because I used that while I was doing my PhD. But enough of that, and sorry to go on so long about engineering thing, but when you talk about engineering thing, you kind of get me started up. So let's go on. So the next presenter would be Dr. Kirkland Anderson, and he would be assisted by his co-author, Mr. Samsudeen Kishinew, and they would present, the title of the presentation is Logistics and Economic Development in the Caribbean Economies, Perspective from Road Networks. And let me just read a little. It's not a little, a long bio, but I'll try to read it quickly. So Dr. Kirkland Anderson is an economist and member of the faculty of the Caribbean Maritime University. He serves on the National Pre-Deal Larceny Prevention Committee Board and Reviewer, Journal of Economics and Finance, Caribbean Examination Council, Review Board, University Council of Jamaica Assessor, Desk Reviewer Board, and a member of the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica and member of the Caribbean Maritime University Academic Board, and Justice of the Peace of Jamaica. That is also new. I thought you were Justice of the Peace were associated with a parish, but no, it's with the entire island. So I learned that today. He has served as an associate professor and chair of the College of Business and Hospitality Management, Northern Caribbean University, adjunct faculty, University of the Commonwealth Caribbean, adjunct faculty in the University of Technology Master's Program, head of Department, Logistics and Supply Chain Management, Caribbean Maritime University, member of the Central Advisory Committee of the National Council on Technical and Vocational Education and Training. He is the author of one book and the co-author of another. Dr. Anderson holds a BSc in Economics and Accounting and a Master in Finance and Management, postgraduate diploma in Education, and a Doctor of Economic Development Policy. In 2012, he was awarded the Northern Caribbean University Award for significant contribution in the areas of research. So that is Dr. Anderson. So I'll read the bio for Mr. Kishinero. So Mr. Samsudeen Kishinero is a financial modeling and valuation analyst with a knowledge of the global problem in the shipping industry. Mr. Kishinero graduated from the University of Technology with Master of Business Administration with specialization in finance. In 2021, Mr. Kishinero published in the Journal of Business School an article entitled Investigating the Sustainability of Jamaica's Small Traditional Farmers in Relation to the Impact of Economic Globalization. Sustainability of Jamaica's Small Traditional Farmers, Strategies in a Global Economy. That's a long name. Currently, he's working on a paper titled The Challenge of Jamaica's Ecotourism, with a focus on the Kingston Harbor. Can it be sustainable? Mr. Kishinero is currently engaged as an adjunct lecturer at the University of the Commonwealth Caribbean and a full-time lecturer at the Caribbean Maritime University. So, as I said, distinguished presenters, so please help me to welcome Dr. Anderson and Mr. Kishinero. I'm not sure in what order they will be presenting, but help me to welcome them. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Chair, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to present today. Our topic is on logistics and economic development in the Caribbean economies, with a focus on road networks. Presenters are listed. Road networks are vital to our country's development agenda. In fact, they are the arteries by which economies remain viable. Road infrastructures is a key factor in spurring economic growth, as well as the improvement in social welfare. The world's most developed countries have significantly high road quality index, ranging from 4.5 to 6.5. We have a table to show you that. Below, which depicts a strong positive correlation between economic development, and the quality of road infrastructures. So we conducted some research and we found out that about 10 countries we look at, with using 1 as the lowest and 7 as the highest number. We discovered that Singapore, considered the country that has the highest road quality index with 6.5. And we also discovered that Norway and New Zealand, they have the lowest in the table of road quality index with 4.5 respectively. And we can see beside the table a road with a quality infrastructures. We also have in figure 1.0 to show you what we mean by a well-built road infrastructures. And we can see from that pictures where you can connect to different areas without you have to face any stoplights. And on the other side, we have a picture that is showing you a road with a poor road infrastructures on paved road. The problem: road networks is essential for eliminating or at least reducing hunger, elevating poverty, and improving the quality of human life in both the urban and rural areas. However, economic development within the Caribbean economies are adversely affected due to 1, the inability of road networks to accommodate the volume of traffic and passengers, mismanagement, poor road design and maintenance. An average of 50% of roadways are unpaved, which in fact is a major problem, especially during the rainy period. This paper sought to establish the correlation between economic development and quality road infrastructures of Caribbean economies, and also to look at the indicators of economic development and indicators of quality road infrastructures. It also established a range of potential costs and benefits associated with the appropriate improvement in road network infrastructures. We conclude with a discussion involving road networks upgrading practices that has the least negative effects on environment. Research questions. What effects does the quality of road network has on the economic development of Caribbean countries? We use quantitative research method to derive 3 purposes for our research questions. 1, to examine the possible predicting impact of the quality of road networks on economic development in the Caribbean economies. 2, to compare the potential costs and benefits associated with improvement in road network infrastructures. To examine the types of road network improvement that has the least adverse effect on the sustainability of environment. The authors came up with our theoretical frameworks. we conceptualize this framework based on our literature review. And this framework we have is to explain to you how the road quality infrastructures will have an effect on economic development. We have on the first side the Rural Assets Index, RAI, the percentage of paved road, and the Connectivity Index, which are considered the indicators of quality road infrastructures. And we link those indicators to the Human Development Index, the per capita consumption, and the per capita GDP, which are considered the indicators of economic development. All of this shows a link to economic development of a country. Methodology. Several data sets were established from a list of 26 Caribbean countries based on the availability of respective data. These data sets range from a minimum of 10 countries, 10 Caribbean countries, and a maximum of 20. We also use linear regression analysis with adjusted R-square were utilized in order to relate, one, the independent variable, road quality infrastructure, percentage of paved road, and connectivity index, and the dependent variables, which are considered the economic development, human development index, per capita consumption, and per capita GDP. We also use standard deviation techniques. This was utilized to forecast errors estimations so as to derive a range of potential costs and benefits. We also use action research studies of statistical evidence from World Bank database relating to the cost of road projects. This was also undertaken so as to estimate the cost of upgrading roads networks within the bloc of nations. We concluded with a discussion involving road networks. We concluded with a discussion involving road networks upgrading practices that will minimize the negative impact on the environments of the Caribbean countries. I will invite my colleague, Cochran Anderson, to continue.
Thank you very much, Sham. Good afternoon, everybody. Our findings, ladies and gentlemen, shows that there is indeed there is a correlation between our dependent variable and our independent variables. This correlation actually range from a moderate and positive to one of positive and very strong. So when we look at road quality index and economic development, we see here where we have a correlation of 0.854, which is extremely strong, and that gives us the indication that once there is an improvement in your road quality, then automatically your economic development will also follow suit. We saw though where when it comes to connectivity and your human development index, that's the HDI, we see here where it is pretty low. It's moderate, it's 0.165. And of course, in between that, you have the percentage of paved road and its impact on the HDI, which is also strong and positive. The impact on the per capita consumption, that's the PCC, and of course, that is also strong and positive. And the same thing applies to the per capita GDP. What we noticed, though, is that when it comes to the connectivity and the per capita consumption, as well as the per capita GDP, we see there where we have a strong but negative correlation. And the main reason for that is because many of our smaller islands, especially the ones that are dependent, tend to have poor low road connectivity, but very high GDP per capita, and of course, very high GDP per capita consumption, beg your pardon. There's another figure in each cell, which is the R square, and that, of course, is our correlation, coefficient of determination, which gives us an indication as to how much of the changes in your dependent variable is explained by the changes in your independent variable. And of course, if you look at road quality index and economic development, you see that there is indeed a 73% indication there, which says to us that if the economic development if there's an increase in economic development by any amount, 73% of that is a result of the improvement in your road network. We have also established 7 different regression functions, statistical regression function, and displayed there for us is a major one. That's, of course, is a statistical regression function that describes the relationship between road quality index or quality road infrastructure and economic development. There is a 0.202 estimate errors that we calculate. Again, ladies and gentlemen, this function can apply to just about all the islands in the Caribbean. Let us look at 2 such examples. We have, for example, Jamaica. Currently, Jamaica has a QRI, a Quality Road Index of 3.9. And of course, it also have an economic development of 5.4, that's the index. If we increase that to 4, which is a change of 0.1, we'll see where our economic development index will move to 5.52, which is a difference of 0.12. When we apply the same function to Bahamas, then again, Bahamas is currently at 3.15, and its economic development is 4.52. If we increase that by about 0.15, which is from 3.15 to 3.3, we see where our economic development index moved from 4.52 to 4.98, which of course is a 0.6 difference. I know this sounds very, very small, but you know, these small changes have significant impact when it comes to things like your human development index, human development capital, your per capita consumption, as well as your per capita GDP. We substantiate that, ladies and gentlemen, by looking at the investment multiplier. We apply the investment multiplier to what we have found here. And one of the things that we discover is that the average investment multiplier in the Caribbean is 6.004. When we looked at Jamaica, Jamaica has investment multiplier 4.48. while the Bahamas has an investment multiplier of 2.785. Now, what does that mean? It means, therefore, if the government, if the authority in these respective countries should invest $1 million in each of these countries, in Jamaica, for example, over time, that $1 million will create 4.48 million. If you do the same thing in the Bahamas, then of course that $1 million will create somewhere in the region of $2.785 million. All right? So it gives you an idea of the significant impact in terms of how much money can be created as a result of the investment on your road. Now that we made it clear that there is indeed a strong and positive correlation between the quality of your road and, of course, your economic development, we can now look at some best practice as to what our governments can do in the Caribbean that will make sure our roads are in better condition, all right? And one of the first things that we want to look at is what we call traffic engineering. Again, this is relatively inexpensive, friends, and that's one of the things we want to focus on. Very inexpensive, very environmentally friendly. So one such example is traffic engineering, which of course, based on our research, shows that it reduces the friction point, the conflict points on your road road from 30 to 16. Again, the purpose of that is the importance of that. It makes it possible for vehicles to traverse one point to the other much, much quicker in shorter period of time. And again, how do we, undertake the traffic engineering? There are some examples that we have there, and one such example is the synchronization of your traffic light. The picture there shows you an example of what it looks like when your traffic lights are indeed synchronized. Again, one of the other way in which we can improve our road is by making sure we have a lot more street signs, where to turn, what to do, etc., etc. That's one of the things that we lack a lot on our roads, especially in Jamaica. I can really firmly say that. Of course, we could also make it possible, especially on our main avenues, we introduce what is called reversibility. So at rush hours, there's some amount of reversing in the road condition, right? So roads that under normal circumstances is two-way. When we have a traffic pile up, or a traffic congestion, or when it is peak hour, beg your pardon, you turn the one-way into two-way. And if we have a path that is actually a two-way, we can automatically convert it into a one-way to ensure that the traffic is indeed much better. All right, I'm going to move very quickly. Again, we have the use of the utilization of non-traditional intersection, and they have a list of them. So the picture shows is a quadrant intersection. Again, it reduces the friction point, or the friction, yes, from 30 to 16. Another way in which we can improve our road network is by the construction of underpass and overpass. Ladies and gentlemen, this of course is somewhat a little bit more expensive, and in the short to medium term, it make the bad situation worse. But in the long run, it eventually solve the problem. All right. So although this is more expensive, and again, it cannot be applied just about anywhere. It means the persons who are specialized in work repairs and improvement will have to have an understanding where are the best point these improvement can take place. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, in the construction of new roads, in the improvement of unpaved road and paved road, there is indeed three most important factors when we are thinking of that, when we are doing that. And the three factors are drainage, drainage, drainage. Now, that is not an error, friends. It does signify the importance of having drainage when it comes to, both creating new roads as well as to repair the roads that you have. All right. Again, everybody, the longevity of these roads is also, impacted on, or the longevity of these roads can be improved with the use of, or the employment of international standards, international designs, as well as appropriate practices to minimize erosion, improve drainage, and other accessibility. Here are some international standards that we would need to abide by. Roads that have a slope of somewhere in the region of 20 to 30% or degrees should never be unpaved. Should always be it should always be paved, ladies and gentlemen, because such a road, such a slope, is indeed very, very difficult to maintain and oftentimes very expensive too. Also, we need to make sure that the maintenance costs and longevity of unpaved road can be improved with the utilization of simple solutions. These solutions were developed by a company named Midwest, which of course we'll call the EcoPave, the EK35, and you have the soil segment engineering. There's also another very, very important procedure that I found in our research. And that is when we have cracks, when we have potholes, instead of digging up these potholes, instead of digging up the road, they are chemicals. They are cheaper and more environmentally friendly method. And one such method is the use of maltane rejuvenator. And of course, there is the chemistry behind that, where of course it expands and it actually ensures that certain chemicals in the asphalt is actually improved upon and therefore ensure that the road itself is much better. Again, when constructing or improving paved road network, the thickness of the asphalt is based on the usage of the roads. Roads that have somewhere in the region of 3,000 or more per day vehicle pass traversing that road, it is important to make sure that you use 2 lifts of 2.5 inch thick, which means that when you compress them, it becomes about 4 inches. And for roads that have less than 3,000, of course, you use 1 lift of 3 inches. Again, when you compress that, you get somewhere in the region of 2.5 inches. Again, everybody, these are some best practices where when we create our road network, we make sure that we have the grade breaks, the dips and low water crossing, and of course, slope stabilization. I'm not going to go, just going to show you what some of those look like. The water bars. It's simply a narrow diagonal cross across the road that it allows the water to run from off the road. And these diagonal crossing are normally very close by, so that enough water, a lot of water is not really piled up on the road. We also have another method, of course, is the use of the 2D grill and the 3D container cells. And this, of course, once it is used, it adds strength to the road, and it also ensures that the weight of the vehicle is spread over on the road as it passes by. And of course, we have the slope stabilization. Again, as we see the picture there, we're simply making sure we use the vegetation that is available to us in the Caribbean, along with other factors, a lot of methods, to make sure that our walls are indeed firm, and so it prevents erosion during the rainy period. All right. So those are some of the practices in terms of maintaining the roads, and of course in terms of construction of roads. Again, just to simply conclude, friends, our road networks indeed is a lifeline of our economy. Of course, without good roads, our economy will always stifle. We want to make sure that at all times we utilize the best practice approach in making sure that when we are constructing our roads, when we are maintaining, when we are repairing our roads, that these practices are cheap and they are also environmentally friendly. My time is running, so in terms of recommendation, we have a few recommendations here. We're going to look at the first and the last. It says more sustainable road construction and restoration techniques must be used in the Caribbean to develop more durable roads that will ultimately improve the economic factors. And the last one, a more technological complex option is a centralized traffic light control system that opens up the possibility of using different modes of control to meet given areas' different requirements. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much, and may God bless you all.
Thank you for that, Dr. Anderson. And you see my chair is busy, just passing and, giving me command. So as a result of that, I'll take 2 questions. 2 questions. Okay, Mr. Cheddar. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, I'm not sure if this is the right section to address this, but I think it did deal with transportation. So I read recently about, research into replacing bunker fuel for ships because it's a very polluting type of fuel, and there are experiments going on with different types of fuels. I don't know if anybody at CMU is aware of that, and just following up those research. And also the presentation on roads, he didn't mention dedicated bicycle lanes. I just came from Vienna, and throughout the city there are dedicated bicycle lanes, and by more people riding bicycles in cities, it reduces greenhouse gas emissions and so on. And of course, everybody benefits from getting exercise.
Okay, thank you. Any presenters? Anyone want to answer that question?
All All right, I think Mr. Shedder, I'm not so sure if it was a question or it was a comment, but yes, our research shows that also a part of the development index is measured based on, a part of the road network, beg your pardon, is based on the availability of lanes for bicycle, walkway, etc. So the scoring that you'll see is a result of the existence of those or non-existence, so to speak. So yes, it was really taken into consideration when we were looking at the index itself.
Okay. And some of these developed countries not only bike lane, but they have bus lane and transportation lane. So if you're driving alone in your car, you use one lane. If you're having a passenger in your car, you can use maybe another lane. The bus would have their separate lane, and the bike would have their lane. So thank you for that. So, question. Okay. Mr. Ellison.
Thank you, sir. So this is for Mr. Engineer, correct? So very, very good presentation on artificial intelligence. But we have seen where social media has redefined what friends mean. Do you think in the metaverse and the use of nanotechnology in neuroscience, do you think we might soon redefine what people or a person is?
It's a pretty tricky era we're entering into. And that is something that is going to stir a lot of controversy going on. In fact, I remember 2019 I was in China. And I was having some discussions with a professor at one of those, Qindo University. And he was discussing some of the research as it relates to the certain diseases that they were researching a cure for: cancer, diabetes, and cystic fibrosis. And he mentioned that they are looking at the year 2029 to start imparting immortality to human beings, and the year 2045 to totally abolish death. We were looking at some of the engineering, from the engineering side, the computer science and the mathematics involved, as well as combining it with genetic engineering to pretty much be able to enable the body to predict when any cells are going malignant or disobeying the natural order of things, and to correct itself. This also means that we may also be entering into the era of transhuman. So that definition of what is a human being, is going to be a very controversial topic going forward. So, look out for that.
Thank you for that question. Yes, as I said earlier, the narrative keeps changing. So, we don't want to be left behind, so we have to keep pace with what is going on. And that is what our researcher at the Caribbean Maritime University endeavored to do. So we are keeping... there's a question. Okay. Mr. Spencer. Go ahead, sir.
Afternoon, everyone. Well, it's not really a question, but to add to the comment or the original question. This year, a record company signed its first AI recording artist. So I think that we are well on the way in terms of redefining what the word friends are, human beings are, not human beings are persons. So this year is the first that happened, and it is really a popular recording artist right now. So you can go on Google and you can see some of the songs that this artificial intelligent being is doing. So we're on the way.
Interesting discussion, and a whole lot of food for thought. So I know some of you Mr. Dean here is tomorrow over coffee, you'll still be laughing. So thank you very much for your attention. And I think we have come to the end of this, 2 days of sharing our information, research, and our ideas. And the good thing about the 2 days is that I said we have come to the end and no one starts shuffling their papers and picking up. So if you want, we can carry the discussion on, because this is saying to me how interesting the discussion has been so far. But I do understand that, it's a Friday evening, and out of respect for your time, I will ask our chair, Dr. Yvette Johnson, to come and pull the lid down on this. So thank you very much. Before that, I'd like my presenters, I want to give you a token of appreciation.
Ladies and gentlemen, can we change, as they would say, the energy in the space? May I have a round of applause? Thank you so much. And yesterday I said it, I'll say it again. The race is not always for the swift. It's for those that endure to the end. And I thank those who have endured in the room this evening. And I know you will agree with me that it has been a very good 2 days of discussion. And I think what we probably need to aim to do next time is to have, as they say, a destination wedding, a destination conference. So when the conference is done, you know that your hotel room is not far away. But I thank you so much. And before we close this evening, on behalf of my co-chair, Professor Ibrahim Ajaguna, and Professor Andrew Spencer, team lead at Caribbean Maritime University, and the entire CMU family, I want to say on the microphone several bits of thank you, and I won't be long. I've learned that when academics say I won't be long, they lie. They lie. They are just putting, I can't drive standard vehicles, but I understand what it means now to gear down and put on compression so that they can go further. They are not telling the truth. But Mr. Telemac, there's a song by an old artist. I grew up with old people, so I love old music. Miss Olida Adams. And she sings a song, and I'm sorry, Tisha, didn't ask you to rehearse it for me. But, Jamaican artists like to take people's good songs and remix them. And so she sang, you can reach me by trainway. All right. You know the song. And she went on, you can reach me with your mind. And I think that's how you kind of got here. She said, I don't care how you get here, just get here. All right. And then we have a Jamaican artist sketch it and remix it, Miss Goody Goody. All right. So you know it. But the gymnastics that took Darwin here, we are so grateful, and for the value added that you brought to this conference. And one of the things that you said to us is that we, a student organization, and we are seriously contemplating that, we have to do the networking. I've learned that the social capital is as important as what is in your pocket. And so we will have further discussions on that. But sir, we thank you for your thoughts. And we know that we have not plumbed the depths of them. And so we hope that we'll continue the conversations in different spaces. We have an amazing planning committee that put this conference together. They're in the room. I will not begin to name people because I don't want to get into trouble, but especially the persons who work behind the scenes to make this happen. I'm going to say Archibald, not because I'm asking Archie to stand, but Archie, commercial concepts. What an amazing set of people. They've been down there like troopers. Everything. Amazing setup for this conference and the support. And as I said, I was getting messages from far away, China. I don't even know any songs about China, so I can't do that. And just thank you guys, thank you for your faithfulness to your craft, your professionalism, and the quality of what you've given us in the virtual and the actual space. Can we have a round of applause? And if you missed the photo up, Jermaine still has his camera in his hand. He's willing to shoot you. All right. So you can be shot before you go. We had presenters. You're still sitting here, and I thank you so much. Amazing, the minds that came into this space. A round of applause for our presenters, please. And whether you were panelists or you were presenting research papers, equally stimulating discussion. To our in-house panel leaders, clap yourselves. Myrna, I still love your panel. You know that there's a joy that got us over the yesterday late evening session. Amazing. And I want to stay at Mrs. Myrna Ellis Medina for 2 more seconds. And I thank you for the young people that you brought into this space in uniform. I think we should really negotiate with the president for them to get a little honorarium, because we could not have paid a team to do this for 2 days and serve when they are students. So we will talk. I want to thank the Universal Service Fund as a corporate body that believes in education, because they came on board and they took us through in amazing ways. I want to thank Lanneman and Morris and Freight Handlers Limited. Can you just give a round of applause for them? And our service providers, Chung's Catering, Short Time Ambulance. I still saw the yellow shirt because they were waiting it out just in case anybody dropped down. But I know they had a good day, 2 days, because nothing untoward happened, and we are thankful for that. Ladies and gentlemen, for our more corporate and regional support, or our friends at the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, please tell them, Mr. Cheddar, that we are so grateful for the support. Ministry of Education, they are our parents, so they have to be here, but you came because. And our friends at the MAJ, Women in Maritime Association of the Caribbean, and wherever we have a larger space, those who, yes, thank you for so faithfully staying with us, to turn around and give our friends a round of applause. And just all about where folks came to stay with us. I am grateful. I'm still seeing vice presidents of the Caribbean Maritime University in the room. I thank you. And last but not least for me, the Jamaica Conference Centre. I want to tell you this in 2 seconds. The Jamaica Conference Centre is under renovation, and they were closing off to the public. But because we had spoken, they honored their, wasn't an obligation because we had not paid fully, but they honored the request to host the conference for us and to make it, to be as, what should I say, to be the least invasive as they needed to be for us to have our conference. And I'm sure you didn't see them except where work was being done. So a round of applause, and I thank Mr. Tyrell Morgan and Miss June Martin for what they've done for us and the space that they have given to us. And ladies and gentlemen, I want to say, you know, Jamaicans like to say, next year, same place. It might be under construction, but we will do this again and continue to have this dialogue. And I'm so grateful to you for joining us, for staying with us, and we say toodaloo until next time. Thank you, folks. Feel free to be shot before you go through the door.